The night was silent, until the screech of a brake changed the course of fate. An old truck, a burning vehicle wreck, and a woman emerging from within, her identity hidden. She just wanted to help. But there was something she didn't know. The woman she saved was the owner of a billion-dollar empire. And this time, the one offering help wasn't ready for the biggest transformation of his life. Because sometimes, fate turns the quietest man into a hero. The screech of the brakes cut through the silence of the night, followed by the sharp echo of metal scraping against asphalt. Eric's heart skipped a beat, as if time had frozen. Reflexively, he gripped the steering wheel, and the old truck skidded with a creak to the side of the road, coming to a stop. The dim headlights flickered and trembled as they spread their light through the fog, while in the distance, the outline of a black vehicle wreck was barely visible through the mist. It was as if a giant hand had squeezed and crumpled a soda can. The car was tangled in a power pole. Eric threw open his door, the frozen ground beneath his shoes cracking with each step, and without a second thought, he started running. Years ago, he had dreamed of being a firefighter, but life had other plans for him. Now he was just a father getting by, doing scrap metal work. But in that moment, that crooked, frozen silence, it felt like his old dream had called him back. He reached the flashlight through the shattered glass and called out, his voice trembling. "Is anyone there?" A faint groan echoed from within. Eric quickened his pace. The car door was hanging off its hinges. He pushed it with his hand, not caring as the sharp metal edges cut into his palms. Inside, a woman lay unconscious. Blood dripped down from her temple, her eyes unfocused, her mind wandering. One of her legs was completely trapped beneath the dashboard. "Hold on," Eric said, his voice both soft and urgent. "I'll get you out of here." He didn't ask any questions. He didn't wonder who she was. All that mattered in that moment was saving her life. His hands, rough from carrying scrap all day, had already formed calluses, but now, those same hands were saving a life. He struggled to clear a path among the metal. Despite the woman's soft moans, he gently lifted her into his arms, his thoughts only focused on getting her away from the car before the smoke underneath turned into flames. Just as the explosion seemed imminent, he cradled her and walked towards his truck. Each step felt like his legs were giving way beneath him, his heart pounding in his chest, but he didn't stop. "Stay awake," he whispered. "I'm here, okay?" The woman, her voice hoarse, whispered, "Don't leave me." Eric never took his eyes off her face as he replied, "Never." He kicked open the truck door and carefully seated her inside. He removed his thin jacket and draped it over her shoulders. His teeth were chattering from the cold, but her skin felt even colder. When he started the engine, the old truck sputtered to life with a cough. The only light cutting through the night came from Eric's headlights. He drove without stopping, only taking a careful look at the woman at the first intersection, where the street lamps barely lit the way. Even beneath the blood, mud, and shock, she radiated a certain grace. There was a regal air about her face that Eric didn't recognize. Her earrings sparkled like diamonds, and her boots looked like they came straight off a boutique shelf. Eric's gaze returned to the road. He wondered who she was, but didn't ask. When the bright lights of the emergency room welcomed them, Eric opened the door and lifted her back into his arms. It was an accident. Her leg was trapped. "Please help," he shouted breathlessly. The nurses rushed in with a stretcher as Eric gently placed her down. It was like laying her down as if she were made of porcelain. When he stepped back, his hands were stained with brownish blood. The woman had neither a wallet nor a phone on her. "I didn't even ask her name," Eric said to the security guard. "I just helped." The man looked at him with suspicion. This man, covered in dirt, with worn-out clothes and a tired voice. And a luxurious-looking, unconscious woman. The appearance seemed to tell everything, but Eric knew better. He reached into his pocket and handed over his ID. "I just helped," he said softly. "I have no other intentions." One of the nurses touched his arm. "You're injured too," she said. Eric looked at the glass cuts on his arm for the first time. His shirt was torn and covered in blood. "It's nothing," he replied. "Just, please save her." Then he sat down in a chair, holding a glass of water. He watched the ER doors close, staring at them for what felt like hours. But inside, the minutes that passed, as they worked to keep her alive, were an endless silence in Eric's mind. The weight of exhaustion, loneliness, and fatigue settled on his shoulders, and as he leaned his head against the wall, he closed his eyes. Eric woke up with a light touch on his head. When he opened his eyes, he saw a nurse smiling gently at him. With a mixture of exhaustion and confusion, he rubbed his eyes. "Are you feeling better?" the woman asked in a soft voice. The woman, she's awake, and she wants to see you. In that moment, Eric didn't think about the cold air or the shards of glass on his skin. "Did she say my name?" he asked quietly. The nurse nodded. "Yes, she specifically asked for you." As he stood up, Eric noticed the pain in his legs. As the events of the night slowly came back to him, reality began to settle in. He had pulled the woman out of a burning vehicle, his own coat that he had draped over her, carrying her to his truck. He hadn't felt like a hero in those moments. He had just done what needed to be done. But clearly, for her, it was much more than that. As the nurse guided him down the hall, the smell of antiseptic, the fluorescent lights, and the dim walls seemed to blur together. When the door cracked open, he stopped. For the first time, he saw the woman clearly. A bandage on her head, a cast on her leg. But her gaze was sharp, awake, and full of life. She was sitting up, propped against the bed. Her eyes were the most unexpected shade of green, and now, those eyes were looking directly at Eric. "You," the woman said, her voice barely a whisper. "You saved my life." Eric lowered his head. "I just did what needed to be done. Someone else would have done the same." Eric stood at the threshold of the door, momentarily forgetting time. The same grace he had seen in Isabelle's face under the hospital lights the night before was there again. But this time, she was standing. She wasn't tired anymore. She was strong. The men standing beside her were silent, but scanning the surroundings attentively, clearly her bodyguards. The speed of her recovery was surprising, or maybe this woman had never been just a patient, but a story full of secrets. "May I come in?" Isabelle asked, her voice soft but firm. Eric nodded and opened the door. Noah immediately moved aside, his eyes still locked on Isabelle. As Isabelle stepped inside, her gaze briefly fell on the broken faucet in the kitchen, the rusty stove, then the faded family photo framed on the wall. Eric's high school diploma, proudly displayed but now color-faded, was hard to miss. This was a modest home, one that didn't promise much but stood strong, fighting to survive. Eric gestured to the couch. "Please sit." "But really, you didn't have to. I mean, what happened last night? It was just the human thing to do." Isabelle sat, but shook her head. "Eric, you gave me my life back. That's not just a small thing. And believe me, I'm not an ordinary person." She pulled out an elegant, embossed card from her coat pocket. It only had a name written in silver, H / Global Enterprises. Beneath it, it read, CEO, Isabelle Hartmann. Eric looked at the card but struggled to find its meaning. What does this mean? Isabelle didn't look away from him, speaking in a serious tone. "This company is mine, and I need people like you. Not fake smiles or fancy resumes. Real people. That's why I'm offering you a job." Eric frowned as though he had misheard. "What?" "I need someone trustworthy for technical work at my company. Someone to manage the maintenance of buildings, organize teams, set up a system. A fixed salary, health insurance, paid holidays, and more importantly, stability." Eric nearly laughed in disbelief. This must be a joke. He was a man who scraped by with second-hand parts, selling scrap metal, buying his son's shoes from a thrift store. What kind of world did he have in this one? "Why me?" he asked quietly. "I mean, hundreds of people could do this job. Trained, experienced people." Isabelle tilted her head and then locked eyes with him. "Because when you saved me, you didn't look at my jewelry, my car, or ask who I was. You just saw someone in need of help. And without hesitation, you acted. That's the kind of person I invest in, Eric. Not the CV, but the heart." A moment of silence passed. Eric thought about the pile of bills in the kitchen, the part he couldn't find to fix the heater, the birthday cake he promised Noah but couldn't afford. And amidst all this, Isabelle's offered path seemed unreal but just as much a lifeline. Isabelle smiled faintly. "I'll give you time to think," she said. "But what I brought you this morning isn't just an offer." She pulled a second envelope from her inner jacket pocket. It was thick, heavy, and filled. "This, to get you started. Fix the truck, settle the bills, buy your son a decent winter coat. This isn't charity. It's a thank you, and a beginning." Eric opened the envelope. His eyes widened. The check inside said $20,000. He had a hard time believing the number was real. His throat tightened. This is too much. Isabelle shook her head. No, this is what you've earned. And there will be more if you accept this offer. Noah's head popped out from the kitchen door. Dad, this woman looks like a princess but talks like a superhero. Eric couldn't help but smile. Isabelle laughed. Your son is a smart one, she said. And kids like him need a safe and strong dad. As Eric held the envelope, he fought with his inner voice. Somewhere between his pride, doubts, fears, and hopes, Isabelle's words echoed in his mind. Surviving is one thing, Isabelle had said. But living, truly living, is a whole different matter. Eric sat on the kitchen chair, holding the check that had come out of the envelope. The numbers danced before his eyes, his hands trembling. His son's laughter, as he watched cartoons inside, mixed with the sound of dripping water from the roof in his mind. This moment was the opportunity he had longed for years. But it was also a test, one where he had to silence his pride and accept it. This can't be real, he muttered to himself. No one does these things just because they're kind-hearted. But Isabelle Hartmann was that person. Or at least, that's how she seemed. Eric looked up and glanced at the file on the wall filled with bills. A warning about the electricity cutoff, a rent notice, a form for a student loan. Each of these official documents was a record of Eric's helplessness. And now, a woman he hadn't known until last night was offering him not just an escape, but a whole new beginning. By midday, Eric paced the house. He lingered by the broken thermostat for a while. Then, he looked at Noah's shoes almost worn out at the soles. The emotions inside him were complex. Gratitude, fear, hope, and most of all, if this is a dream, when will I wake up? Around 3 o'clock, Eric made up his mind. He grabbed the truck keys. Turning to Noah, he said, I've got a quick errand. But you're my bravest hero, okay? Noah nodded, showing him the paper airplane he had made. I'll protect you, Dad, he said. Eric smiled, but his eyes were filled with tears. A child Noah's age shouldn't have to protect anyone. Not anymore. As he drove the truck, his hands gripped the wheel tightly. He read the card in his pocket again. H&V Global Enterprises. The company name felt like it belonged to another planet. But step by step, he was getting closer to that other planet. The flashy glass facade of the building overshadowed the other buildings in the city. Eric parked at the farthest corner. He checked the check again. He hadn't brought it with him. Just the card. And maybe a bit of courage. When he stepped into the lobby, the dazzling marble floor contrasted with the scuffs on Eric's boots. The receptionist woman looked up, then recognized him. Mr. Stein, they're expecting you, she said with a smile. Eric nodded, surprised. Isabelle must have arranged this. At that moment, he realized this wasn't just a job interview. It was a specially prepared journey for him. He was led to the elevator. In the silence of the rising box, his heart beat faster. For someone like him, just being in such a building felt like a revolution. When the door opened, Greg was there again, Isabelle's bodyguard. The man bowed his head with a blank expression. Right this way, Mr. Stein. When Eric stepped into the office, his eyes almost went blind. The floors were surrounded by ceiling-to-floor windows. The city skyline was at his feet. The chairs were made of white velvet. And in front of the glass, Isabelle stood, holding a coffee cup. This time, she wore heels. A simple navy blue dress, her wavy hair cascading over her shoulders. But the most striking thing was her eyes. They were as sharp, clear, and focused as the night before. Welcome, Eric, Isabelle said, her voice warm but serious. Eric nodded, stepping inside as his voice came out hoarse. I'm here, but I still don't understand why it's me. Isabelle walked over to the sofa and motioned for Eric to sit. They sat down. The woman calmly opened a file. She pulled out an offer letter. Look, she said, I'm not giving this to you just out of gratitude. Yes, you saved my life. But more importantly, you showed me I can trust you. You helped without expecting anything in return, just because you saw me as someone who needed help. And my company is looking for exactly that kind of person. Eric looked at the document. This time, the words didn't feel like a dream. The position of technical maintenance manager, health insurance, paid holidays, child benefits, and the starting bonus that came with the first paycheck. His eyes welled up, but he tried not to show it. He looked up and said, I accept, his voice shaking. Isabelle's smile this time was different. It wasn't flashy, there was genuine relief in it. Welcome, Eric. Today, you're not just the man who saved my life. Today, You're the man who restarted his own life. Eric started his first day at work early in the morning. He parked his truck at the farthest corner of the company's lot. He still didn't feel like he belonged to that tall building. But this morning was different. His clothes, though secondhand, were clean and pressed. Even the toolbox he brought seemed, for the first time in years, neatly organized. As he passed the security gate, the guard nodded to him. This small gesture spread like a quiet wave inside Eric. I belong here now, he thought to himself. The first few hours inside the building passed with a mixture of awe and focus. The hallways were silent but functional. In the staff room, the workers greeted Eric with warm smiles. So, you're the new maintenance guy? A young woman asked. Greg mentioned you. Welcome. Eric nodded, a little shy but sincere. It's my first day, yes. I hope I don't break anything. Laughter followed. For the first time in years, Eric felt a strange sense of belonging, working alongside others. By noon, he had checked several air conditioners, repaired a lighting panel in a room. With every task, he was not just using a screwdriver, but also relying on years of instinct. And this time, it felt different. These efforts weren't just about survival, they felt like an investment in the future. By the weekend, Eric found himself more accustomed to the building. He had bought a brand new coat and a real soccer ball for Noah. For the first time in a long time, he shopped without looking at the price tags. When he returned home, Noah greeted him enthusiastically. Dad, we have a match in the neighborhood league today. Now I've got a real ball. Eric looked at the sparkle in his son's eyes. The past deprivations, the cold evenings, the empty meals, all seemed to fade away slowly. This wasn't just financial relief, it was the acknowledgement of his pride and hard work. The following week, Isabelle called him to her office again. Eric washed his hands thoroughly, straightened his work clothes, and headed upstairs. When he knocked on the office door, a voice from inside said, "Come in." Isabelle was, as usual, standing by the window, looking out. The light outside was fading slightly, and the city lights were beginning to shine. "Are you okay?" Eric asked as he entered. Isabelle turned around, this time her smile absent. She looked more thoughtful, a little worn. "I'm fine. Actually, I'm better now." A silence hung in the air. Then Isabelle pulled an elegant envelope from her desk drawer. "I want to share something with you," she said. She handed the envelope to Eric. Inside was not a check, but something different. A letter, written by hand. The lines were shaky, emotional, and careful. "When I was a child," Isabelle began, her voice thickening, "my mother once told me, if you ever gain true power, the first person you save should be someone like you." I've never forgotten those words. Eric turned his eyes from the letter to her. In Isabelle's eyes, there was a glint from the past, a painful shimmer. "I didn't just save you, Eric," she said slowly. "You saved me too. In that burning car, I wasn't afraid of dying. I was afraid of being alone again. And you, even though you didn't know me, reached out to me." Eric took a deep breath. "I helped you because you needed help. That's all." Isabelle nodded. "Yes, and sometimes that's all it takes. People survive because someone says, that's all." Then, she reached for another envelope from her desk. It was thinner this time. She handed it to Eric. "This is a bonus. For the work you've done. You can use it as a start for a new home for you and your son." Eric opened the envelope. The check inside was enough to cover the down payment for a house. He felt his hands tremble. "Isabelle, I can't accept this." Isabelle locked eyes with him. "This isn't charity, Eric. This is the result of your hard work. You earned it. You'll accept it." And in that moment, Eric felt the weight he had been carrying for years lighten, both physically and mentally. He was no longer just a father trying to survive. He was a man rebuilding a future for his family. The new month had begun. Eric woke up not just to start the day, but to walk toward the future. His home had transformed from a mere shelter into a haven woven with hope. Noah, putting his new school bag on his back as he left through the door, never failed to say, "My dad's a handyman, but actually, he's a hero." Eric no longer looked at himself in the mirror with unfamiliar eyes. The traces of past exhaustion had given way to peaceful lines on his face. It had been exactly 40 days since he started his new job. That morning, when Greg, Isabelle's bodyguard, came to find Eric at the company and said, "Ms. Hartman is waiting for you upstairs for a special project," Eric felt his heartbeat quicken into excitement. When he got upstairs, Isabelle was again looking out over the city from the large windows of her office. But this time, there was a screen open on her desk, showing architectural plans and drawings. "Eric," Isabelle said as she turned, her voice as calm as always, but with a spark hidden inside. "I want to share something with you, and I want to hear your opinion." Eric nodded. "Of course. What's it about?" Isabelle pointed to the screen. "This is a new social housing project for families with low income, but I don't just want it to be a place where they can live. I want it to be a place where they can truly thrive. Safe, warm, and dignified. And I want you to oversee the infrastructure, both the technical work and the site organization, because I'm doing this for people like you, and I want people like you to build it." Eric's throat tightened. I've never done something this big." "Not yet," Isabelle said, "but I saw that potential in you. That night, when you saved a woman from a burning car, I saw it. Now it's time to turn that courage into construction." When Eric returned home that evening, Noah was waiting for him on the porch. He had a picture from school in his hand. When Eric looked at the drawing his son had made, his eyes filled with tears. The picture showed a big building, smiling people in front of it, and a sentence written in large letters above, "My dad builds homes for people." In that moment, Eric felt the broken pieces inside him, pieces that had been shattered years ago, finally come together. He hadn't become rich, nor had he experienced a miracle, but he had found his grip on life again. And most importantly, he was no longer just a savior, but someone who lightened the load of others. As weeks passed, construction began. Eric walked the site in his boots, plans in hand, explaining techniques to the young workers on his team, sharing his old experience. He was now like a manager, but he never looked down on anyone. He dirted his hands every day, but he kept his heart clean. One day, during lunch, a young woman from the project came up to him. "Mr. Stein," she said shyly, "I saw you on TV. Isabelle Hartmann said about you. He didn't just help me. He reminded me of what it means to be someone I'll never forget for the rest of my life." Eric smiled slightly. "I just did what needed to be done," he said, as he always did. But he was no longer an ordinary person. He was someone who had changed a life, and then had grown that change. Just as Isabelle had said, this world needed more Eric Steins. And maybe it had all started with a single stance. The screech of a brake, a dark night, a stranger's cry. The ripple effect born from that moment had begun transforming not just a life, but a community. Because sometimes, saving someone doesn't just keep them alive. It lifts an entire future. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel and like the video, because every story could be someone else's hope. And maybe one day, your story will be told here too.